The time has come. The first ever 12-team college football playoffs kicks off in less than 24 hours. It all starts tomorrow night with an in-state thriller for two teams just 200 miles apart. Two teams facing each other for the first time since 1991. After Notre Dame, Indiana face off tomorrow night, we get three more games on Saturday. Arguably the most anticipated 24 hours of college football we've seen to date. We break it all down tonight, pick our national champions, buckle up as the Malore is poured and the Cignettis are a-burning.
Sports.
Welcome in a special edition of Bite Sports. We're previewing the college football playoffs. With me tonight, our resident Hoosier fan, Nate, who's going to make sure that you don't leave tonight without being fired up about this Cignetti squad out of Indiana. Nate, less than 24 hours from Indiana's biggest football game ever. How you doing?
I'm feeling great. I mean, it's basically playing with house money at this point. I mean, the fact that we're even here talking about Indiana football is a miracle in its own right. So whatever happens tomorrow will not matter in terms of how I feel about the year. So I'm real excited to get into it.
We'll definitely break down the game itself, but do you like? I felt like all season long, not an Indiana fan, but I'm following college football. I'm always feeling like, when are the wheels going to fall off in Indiana? Like, is this team real? You know, but do you? No matter what happens tomorrow night, do you have this like new vision of what like Indiana's going to look like next year or the year after now? Just with what Cignetti's been able to do in his first year?
I mean, everything can change with the transfer portal. So yeah. I'm real curious. Like, for example, IU's been connected to that Penn State backup quarterback I've seen recently. So, you know, things can continue as long as your coach, you know, your team hits the portal and really shells out the NIL dollars, which – you know, it's never been an issue of IU being able to afford like top college program, you know, even back when players were not getting paid. You know, IU's got a huge alumni base. I mean, there's hundreds of millions of dollars in alumni money. So now, you know, I mean, this should show like, hey, you're going to wake a sleeping giant, and the schedule looks pretty favorable for next year too, even, you know, with having to change a lot of players probably out because some of these key players are unfortunately going to run out of eligibility or, you know, go to the draft, which there's a couple of guys I'm real high on. But like, for example, IU's non-conference schedule next year is Old Dominion, Kennesaw State, and Indiana State. So a real trash FCS.
Sycamores, baby. Watch out for the trees.
No, not at all. Also, sorry to James, but a real.
Do they play Division I football?
They do.
Are they FCS?
They're in the Missouri Valley.
That's FCS, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
They have one stand, so the football field is not two stands on both sides, just one stand.
Like there's high school football stadiums that are larger than Indiana.
Yes, there's high school football stadiums that are nicer, even in the state of Indiana. Kennesaw State is one of the worst FBS teams, and Old Dominion, whatever. But yeah, I mean, the toughest game next year is, well, they've got two tough ones, but it's at Oregon and at Penn State. But aside from that, don't have Michigan and don't have Ohio State either. So, you know, the schedule sets up nicely. I mean, again, two tough games, but we'll see. But yeah, we can talk about that come January 20th or 21st or whatever, because right here now we're about to talk about Kevin's team.
It is. It's January 20th is the championship, right? Yeah, 21st is.
Oh, I guess.
Yeah, you were spot on. You were spot on there. We were definitely talking plenty of Indiana and Notre Dame here. Real quick, thank you all for being in the chat. Humpson here. We sometimes know, we sometimes don't. It just depends on how much we've enjoyed before we came on to the show. Kev, I butchered the Malort joke. I thought, like, I read it like 3 times. I thought it was gonna work, and then I couldn't say Malort is a poured. Kind of rhymed. Obviously, don't get my English majors out on me there. Yes, and I'm obviously watching Broncos Chargers on the back end. So if you see things flicker on my face, it's just because there's football on. But no, I'm not scared of the Broncos. I did pick them to win. I do have bet them to win tonight, but we are here to talk college football. And Nate, I want to kind of start here. Just a big conversation last week. We've kind of moved on from it a little bit, but I wanted to get your take as well here on the college football rankings. The big debate, did the committee get it right? And that's going to be the debate each and every year. There's 68 teams in the basketball tournament, and every year that's all we talk about is, did the committee get it right? But for me, I think they got it absolutely right. I think that you can say Alabama is a better football team than SMU. If that's what you think, so be it. I think that you can't punish SMU for losing in the conference championship game. They have 1 loss in the regular season versus Alabama's 3 losses in the regular season. They make the ACC championship, so that tells me they should be above Miami, right? Miami shouldn't have lost to Syracuse if they wanted a spot in here, and any of these 3 lost SEC teams. So I mean, I am really under the impression that the committee absolutely nailed it, and it kind of helped that some of these teams lost games they probably shouldn't have lost late in the season to give them that opportunity to be right. But I wanted to get your take here. Obviously, you're a fan of the second to last team in Indiana, but they were ranked, up in the 8th spot here. Do you think the committee got it right overall, specifically around like SMU versus Miami, Alabama, Ole Miss, enter SEC name?
Well, first of all here, I mean, Alabama's a good squad, but they're a super inconsistent squad. And really, if you wanted to be in, don't lose that Vanderbilt by 5, and don't get the doors blown off of you by a mediocre at best Oklahoma team. Like, not even just like,
especially late in the season.
Exactly. Not even like a comfortable win, but a dominating win. So to me, like, it really, at this point, it really, it wasn't really between Alabama and SMU. And, I mean, if SMU had come back and beaten Clemson, I mean, we'd be talking about Alabama in here, but I mean, Alabama had chances. I don't even think their schedule was super great to begin with. I mean, yeah, they beat Georgia, but Georgia showed a lot of inconsistency. Now I think Georgia's probably the best team in the SEC, as they showed in the SEC title game. But, I mean, Tennessee doesn't really have an offense that will run very well. There's no reason Missouri should be – honestly, in my opinion, Missouri shouldn't be ranked. I mean, take away that Georgia win, I think Alabama's wins all look pretty mediocre to bad. I mean, and really, if we're talking about South Carolina beating Alabama back when they played, I mean, South Carolina is probably in the playoff over SMU. And I don't necessarily think anybody would have too huge of a problem with that, just because – South Carolina also got ripped off by officiating against LSU. So you really take those 2 wins away, or, those 2 losses away. Yeah, they had a bad loss against Ole Miss, but Ole Miss was right up there. And You know, if you look at it objectively, and I mean, Alabama has too many issues with their resume, in my opinion. And with Alabama and South Carolina having the same record, I don't think you can put South Carolina above Alabama with the head-to-head. And, you know, Miami, like, let's be real, Miami should be like 7-5, 8-4, something like that. I mean, they got a lot of help at the beginning of the year with some kind of questionable calls. But Ole Miss, don't lose to a garbage Kentucky team, don't lose to a kind of mediocre LSU team, and don't lose to a mediocre Florida team, and you're in. Like,
Yeah.
It was set up real well for Ole Miss, and they didn't deliver. So at that point, didn't really, can't really speak about it. So yes, the committee.
I think that's the biggest point right there. Is like, you got to win, and not necessarily like non-conference games, because like Notre Dame's not being punished for losing early in the season to
NIU.
I was like, I know it was an Illinois team. I couldn't remember which one. Like that, they're not being punished for losing to Northern Illinois. So it's not like you can't still go and have these big early season games against top-notch opponents, and then be kind of screw yourself. Like you just gotta when you're put in a position to beat lesser opponents, you have to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And these teams just did not do that this year, which is very interesting. I do think had Miami beat Syracuse and it was Miami versus SMU in the ACC championship, and let's just say Miami won that game like Clemson did, so SMU was a 2-loss team at that point, I do think that could have been a little bit more interesting, because then you're talking, a 2-loss SMU team who just lost in their championship game,
right,
versus like a 1-loss Indiana team or a 2-loss Tennessee team. Like that could have been a little interesting, but again, I think that we both kind of agreed the committee got it right, and the teams just they got to win those games. Alabama should not be losing to Oklahoma. Like that, just after the season they had, they shouldn't be losing to Vanderbilt. And sometimes it doesn't matter about the wins that you have if you can't beat the teams
right,
that are clearly lesser opponents.
I mean, those 2 wins got those 2 teams bowl eligible. So, I mean, Alabama had no business losing to a Vanderbilt team that I believe the week before that game, 2 weeks before, had lost to a pretty trash program in Georgia State. I mean, Georgia State finished 3-9 at the bottom of the Sun Belt with Southern Miss. I mean,
why do you hate the Panthers, man? Come on.
They're bad. I mean,
well,
they're just straight up bad.
Yeah, and I think we're in agreement there. Let's talk about some playoff stuff though. Let's get into some of these. Let's get into some of these games. Let's get into the big one. The reason we're actually here, the Mac Daddy of them all, the Hoosier Daddy, of them all, Indiana versus Notre Dame tomorrow night. First of all, if you're here with us, let us know in the chat. You think Indiana has a chance to pull the upset? And I say upset in terms of seeding, betting odds, those kind of things. Some of you may not see it as an actual upset, but going off of what Vegas has to say and what the seedings have to say, can Indiana pull the upset? Let us know in the chat. And then I'll also plug, before we get too far into it, an opportunity to join my college football playoffs pick'ems. The first year I'm ever doing a pick'ems, obviously, for college football playoffs, since it's the first year we're having a 12-team playoffs. So I host NFL stuff all the time, fantasy football stuff all the time. This year, I do March Madness stuff, obviously. So Now we're going to do a college football playoffs pick'ems. You're literally just picking every single game round by round. It's not a bracket challenge. It is a true, you pick the winner each and every week. So if you're interested in that, hit me up on Twitter at Trevor_SFF. But let's get into it. Indiana 7-point road underdogs game is going to be at Notre Dame, where Jesus scores touchdowns in the Catholic city, 200 miles away.
Not really a Catholic city, but
oh, it's good Catholics, whatever. A total of 52.5. Let us know in the chat where you're at. Nate, give us your thoughts. I know that this is a big one here. We want to talk through. How does tomorrow look? How does Cignetti get this team rolling against the Fighting Irish?
It's just a matter of, keeping on it, kind of going with the chip on your shoulder. I mean, no, I will say since that NIU loss, Notre Dame honestly has looked like one of the best, if not the best team since in that last 10 games. I mean, you're looking at their schedule, they blew out Purdue at about the same rate. I mean, IU didn't let them score. They had a close game against Louisville. But aside from that, you look at the schedule and not a ton of tough games, but a lot of comfortable wins. Blew out USC, kind of at USC, made a mockery of our armed forces with 2 games this year. But it's going to be a tough. I mean, it's going to be a tough game. Again, I'm going to pick them to win, like not to get ahead of myself, but at the same time, if it ends up, I'm wrong in that scenario, this is still a great year for me. This is icing on top of the cake there. I think the key matchups are definitely going to be, the interior line of Notre Dame. Fantastic interior line on the defensive side versus Indiana's interior offensive line. If you watch the IU-Ohio State game, the defensive line for Ohio State started to make a huge difference. You watch the IU-Michigan game, that's how Michigan kind of came back and controlled the second half there with their All-Americans on the line. So it's, an important thing, especially with one of the starters going out earlier in the year with an Achilles or ACL tear, excuse me. That's the key matchup in my mind. Notre Dame's got fantastic rushing attack, a lot of good, playmakers on that side of the ball for them. But I think, the real star of this Indiana Hoosiers team, as much as they've scored throughout the year, the defense has really been the star, in my opinion. They gave up 38 points to Ohio State, but the special teams kind of spotted the Buckeyes 14 there. I have good faith that we can at least slow down that Notre Dame rushing attack. It's just also going to be a matter of, can Riley Leonard get the ball out on the edges there? Because the corners can kind of be hit or miss at times. I mean, we've got a couple of really good players out there. So it's just a matter of, to me, it all comes down, how is the interior lines going to be moving forward throughout the game. Last I looked, now it could have changed. And I'm actually going to try and see if I can find it here, or the weather forecast. But last I heard, there's supposed to be 15 to 30 mile an hour winds with some lake effects now coming off the lake there into South Bend. So that can really change the game plan a lot. It's definitely going to be a lot of a running type of game there. So, so right now it does not appear to be a ton of snow potential tomorrow night. Winds have died down a little bit, but we'll have snow all through the night, so that'll play a part in that.
The frozen tundra. Notre Dame 8 straight games scoring over 30 points, and 9 of their 11 games they've scored over 30 points. You kind of mentioned Cignetti's defense here and the ability to stop the run for the Hoosiers. That kind of does feel like the game within the game, right? Like that kind of feels like maybe like, if we're ESPN and we're flashing key graphics, Nate's, ways to win the game for Cignetti, whatever. Like it's got to be that run game and that ability to stop the run for this Indiana team. And it sounds like you're confident that is an actual possibility that Indiana can go ahead and stop that run and slow this offense down and keep, potentially keep Notre Dame under 30. If Notre Dame scores 30, can Indiana's offense, let's think about that way, can Indiana's offense and Curtis Rourke, like, can they keep up with Notre Dame if they're scoring over 30 points?
I think they can. I know based on, especially watching the Ohio State game, Notre Dame would be smart to bring the pressure multiple times in this game. As just to borrow our friend John's favorite team here, pull Brian Flores and blitz a ton of times. Again, it all comes down to that interior offensive line for the Indiana Hoosiers. That's going to be the huge difference maker there. Notre Dame will still get their points. I mean, that's just when you got a leader and a quarterback and Riley Leonard, you'll still get some points there. But excuse me. Yeah, that's basically it. Comes down to the interior line. That's going to make or break the game for either team.
Yeah, Riley Leonard, the old Dookie, having a fine season there. Let's talk a little bit about the Indiana run game. We talked about Notre Dame being the obvious, like, that's going to be the big thing for Indiana. But Indiana, kind of a two-headed monster, right? Like they use both these guys. I'm talking Justin Ellison and Tyson Lawson, like, good seasons. The Indiana run game is strong. Can they potentially lean on the run game a little bit to maybe help keep that Notre Dame offense off the field? I keep going back to that Notre Dame offense. 8 straight 30-plus points. Like, not that they're playing top-notch defenses, right? Army, Navy, USC kind of sucks this year. Like, it's not that they're playing top-notch defenses, but that's still a very explosive offense. And so can Notre Dame lean on their run game a little bit here to kind of slow that offense down?
I mean, you talk about, 9 – you said 9 games over 30?
Yeah, 9 games out of the 11 over the 30.
I mean, IU's got 10 games out of their 12 so far over 31.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, 2 offenses.
Just put up like 60 in their last game, right?
Yeah, against the hapless
I mean, it was Purdue. Was it Purdue?
Yeah. That was very enjoyable. That took off.
That was enjoyable.
That was very enjoyable.
That's awesome.
But Notre Dame also scored 66 against Purdue at Purdue earlier in the year. So it's it's hard to really take anything from that game if you're trying to. You can't really compare in that way, in my opinion. So even without that, it's really hard to take anything just because end of the year Purdue was legitimately might have been the worst team in the state of Indiana, like FBS, FCS, Division II, Division III, NAIA. Like,
couple high school state champions that are probably better than Purdue was.
I wouldn't go that far, though. I wouldn't go that far. But, yeah, I mean, aside from that, like, Notre Dame and Indiana really did not have any other common opponents to really build off anything there. So, again, I've said it multiple times here, but it is just going to be the interior offensive line versus the interior defensive line. So Indiana's offensive line versus Notre Dame's defensive line. That is going to be the difference maker in the game.
I mean, who doesn't love a snowy, cold, grind it out in the trenches game, right? College football Friday night. Let's just go. It's actually kind of interesting. We didn't really talk a lot about the matchups, but I feel like a lot of the conversation before the matchups came out was, what if a team like Alabama has to go north to Ohio State and play in the cold weather? What if, Notre Dame has to go south to Georgia? Well, Georgia's not an outdoor stadium, but there's like all these like
it is
Georgia's outdoor stadium.
Yeah, I mean Notre Dame played there in 2019, 18, something like that.
Okay, so it's just interesting, like to hear that was kind of the talk of the mainstream media pre-matchups.
Right?
How are these How are they gonna? The Big Ten, they play cold games all year round. How is an SEC team who plays in the hot weather going to come up to Big Ten country? And then we end up with Notre Dame, Indiana. Like that's out the window now. Both these teams are ready for this. They're
right.
used to this. They're not worried about the snow and rain and wind. Like they're ready for the grinded out games.
I as much as I didn't want Georgia to win the SEC title, I think the fact that they won the SEC title and the fact that Penn State did not get blown out really helped in this regard. Also, I think SMU, the last rankings before the conference championship games, I believe they were ahead of Indiana, although they would have gotten the bye, so that wouldn't have made a difference. But that Georgia game really helped in the regards of setting this matchup up. And you knew, like, committee was going to kind of play it a little bit, funky with the rankings. Yeah. I mean, of course, they weren't going to have Ohio State and Indiana play again in the first round there, especially
Indiana, Penn State, like just games. It was a matchup a couple of weeks in a row, but I just didn't see it actually happening.
That one,
I didn't see it come to fruition,
Yeah, I mean, that one would have been okay. I mean, just that it was either going to be, in my opinion, Georgia, Penn State, or Notre Dame, and then obviously Notre Dame here.
Yeah.
But yeah, to build on your point about, the talk about Southern schools going north, playing in the snow. I mean, you got two kind of matchups like that. I mean, SMU at Penn State. Sorry, John, no bourbon today.
I know, that's what I was gonna say. No Malort tonight. Just a little water to help get through it. It is a crash course. We're trying to give you as much information about the college football playoffs as possible. Sorry, go on with your point about SMU.
That's hard. But you got SMU at Penn State, but I mean Dallas can get cold. And then the other one is Tennessee at Ohio State. But Tennessee is kind of in the mountains. Like it can snow in Knoxville.
Yeah, I didn't really think SMU. I'm going to talk about SMU here in a little bit. Going up to Penn State is, I know they're a little bit more east, obviously, than Indiana, but it appears with that lake effect snow is kind of moving across the Great Lakes. Can Pennsylvania get any of that, or do you think, have you looked at?
I haven't looked
weather
at
all for that game.
No, not for that one, because that's the 12:00 game on Saturday, correct? I think so. Yeah, that's the 12:00 game because Ohio State Tennessee is the 8:00 game. So their forecast for Saturday, they are supposed to get some snow tomorrow, but their forecast for Saturday, it's going to be cold, but it'll be partly cloudy and pretty clear.
Okay. Could come into play though a little bit, that idea of like south versus coming north a little bit there.
And looking at Columbus for Saturday night, I mean, there's not any expected precipitation so far, but it'll be down in the low 20s.
So we'll get 3 out of the 4 games will be sub-freezing. And then you get the Texas game. Obviously, we're not worried about weather in Texas with Clemson going to Texas there. So that'll be it'll be interesting to kind of see how that plays out. And if SMU is bothered by it or if Tennessee is bothered by it, I don't think it's a factor, obviously, in the Indiana-Notre Dame game being 200 miles apart. The weather itself, the lake effect snow might factor into the game, but I don't think it's like the idea of a southern team going north by any means.
No, I mean southern as in southern Indiana, but
right, yeah. We got some guys in the chat here. If you're in the chat, if you're watching, look, we appreciate it. Obviously, we're kind of this isn't a regular show we have every week, but we wanted to talk some college football stuff. I would actually be super excited to try to do this again. Previous the round 2, what is that? New Year's Eve week.
Yeah.
So maybe 2 weeks from tonight. So maybe we do it again 2 weeks from tonight, January 2nd. I think that's the date. Now to talk about round 2. But I appreciate you all being here. Obviously, please hit that like button. One thing we got going on here at Bite Size Sports, and I'll pull it up now. I didn't even think about it, is you have an opportunity to support us now. If you would like to support Bite Size Sports, you can Venmo at Bite Size Sports. We don't, obviously we don't care what it is. Anything helps build our brand up as we go on. And if you do it tonight, just put CFP in the comments. That'll support, the show here tonight and Bite Size Sports as a whole. We appreciate any of that. And we're trying to build a brand, and we're trying to push for 700 subscribers. We're at 688 going into tonight. So we're super excited about that.
And James doesn't know it, but for every $100 that we get with CFP on it, James will do a shot of Malort. See, he's even in the comments right
He's
there.
ready. He's ready. Every 100, I'll just say every $10, James will do a shot of Malort. James, big Nebraska guy, obviously growing up in Nebraska, Husker volleyball. Is that tonight? Are they in the championship game? I saw where Texas got upset. I think did they get upset by Creighton, James? All right, I know we're talking CFP stuff, but anyways,
I think they did. I think they did. The bracket is Penn State and Nebraska are playing right now.
Is it the Final Four or the championship?
Yeah, the Final Four. They will play the Louisville Cardinals.
So Louisville won who did Louisville beat? Was it Creighton?
Louisville beat Pittsburgh. Where is that Texas? So Penn State beat Creighton in the.
Okay, but Creighton beat Texas, right?
Yes,
that's right. That's a big thing. So in Nebraska, I lived in Omaha, and we'll get back to college football playoffs. I lived in Omaha. James obviously grew up in this state. It's a weird state, y'all. Like there's no pro sports, so it's Husker football, and then it's Husker volleyball. Like that's it. Like they don't care about basketball in that state at all. And Creighton basketball is obviously decent, but Creighton volleyball, Husker volleyball, when you lived in Omaha, like people would talk about like, hey, I got a couple tickets to tonight's game. You want to go? And you're like, what game is it? And they're like, oh, it's Creighton versus Nebraska volleyball. Like what? Like everybody's excited to go to the game. So it's definitely a different vibe in Nebraska, but hopefully the Huskers can pull that out. They definitely are a phenomenal volleyball team in volleyball school. And obviously we want them to win for our good friend James here. Let's kind of move on. Let's move on from, by the way, do you care about the total in this game? I know you just want Indiana to win, but all this snow and cold and windy.
I would
kind of makes me want to go the under.
I I would take the under if I really cared, I guess.
Yeah. I was just curious. We don't have to go too in depth on it, but I was curious. Do you have anything else you want to say about Indiana, the fighting Sigs versus the fighting Irish?
That who's your daddy, Notre Dame? That's what we'll all be saying Friday night.
Hell yes. Who's your daddy? Indeed. Let's take a look just real quick at the rest of this. I'll just pull up a bracket. Kind of gives us a little. Maybe I'll pull up the scores. There we go.
So the first matchup Saturday, we got SMU, Penn State. I know, in our little discussion and just, reviewing some notes that we had, not to jack your thunder here, but I know this was your upset alert for the first round here. Can you elaborate a little bit more why you feel that way? Because I'm kind of going in the opposite direction on this one.
Yeah, I feel like I like what I saw at Penn State against Oregon. I felt like they really kept up with Oregon the way that I did not expect them to by any means. So I did like that. For me, SMU is a kind of a different breed of football than the Big Ten. And Jennings at quarterback, his ability to his kind of like dual threat ability, I think is going to give Penn State problems. I know like Oregon is top of the line, right?
Mm-hmm.
But Penn State looked like they had no idea what to do on defense when they were facing Oregon this past week. And I think that SMU has the ability and the offensive explosion, like the weapons on offense, to do the same thing to Penn State and simply outscore them. I truly think this could be a kind of more of a shootout style game, similar to what we saw in the ACC championship, similar to what we saw in the Big Ten championship. And give me SMU to outscore Penn State here 38-35, 35-32, somewhere in that range. Going to be close. 8.5 is just, to me, is wild in this. And we kind of mentioned it like pre-show. We didn't mention it on the show, but every home team is a touchdown plus favorite.
Mm-hmm.
Wild in the college football playoff. These are supposed to be the best teams in the nation. And you're telling me over a touchdown separates these two teams because they lost to Clemson? Clemson is very experienced. Clemson has been there over and over and over again. I'm not surprised that Clemson won that game. But if you go back to that game, SMU is absolutely dominating the end of that game. They are cruising, and they tie the game, and Clemson gets the great kickoff return to kind of put them in position to kick the long field goal to win the game. If that game goes to overtime, I don't think Clemson wins that game. I think SMU carries that momentum. They were dominating that game. They gave it up early. Clemson went out 21-7, 21 something, gave it up early. I don't think SMU does that against Penn State. I think SMU keeps it close early, and as the wheels start to turn, this offense starts to hum. I really like what I've seen out of SMU this year, and I'm excited about this game. It's interesting they put it at the noon game. I'm not surprised because it's two of the, Penn State's, they've got some history there, obviously, but it's no Texas, it's no Ohio State, so I'm not surprised it's the noon game.
It's probably
I like
the less, for lack of a better phrase, the less sexy matchup in the first round.
100%.
You got so many storylines Friday night, ad nauseum. Like you could probably spend a good 30 minutes to an hour making up storylines for IU Notre Dame. Clemson, Texas, while they don't have a ton of history together, Texas is back. That's
Texas. Yep.
Clemson, recent dynasty in their own right. Playing with house money right now. And then the, Saturday night game. I mean, you got two good programs there. A lot of questions while he is coming back, a lot of questions around Ryan Day and his ability in big games, especially against, the team up north.
Hang on. He is coming back as in like Ohio State came out and said that?
Yeah, the AD.
Okay. That's interesting.
So,
I kind of wanted to mention that tonight. Like I wanted to ask you like your thoughts on like if Tennessee won, does Ryan Day lose his job?
I think Ryan Day is on the inferno seat if they lose.
Even now, AD comes out and says, Ryan, you have to, right? As an AD, you're in the college football playoffs. But if they lose, does that change anything?
I mean, it depends. Is the term I'm looking for? Are the boosters, are they going to pay up? Because I think Ryan Day's buyout is like $37 million or something like that. And last I saw right after the game, boosters did not want to raise money to pay that. So
makes sense.
I think he's coming back next year, but if they lose on Saturday, I think they are, you're going to need to call the fire department because that seat is on fire.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But yeah, to go back, just real quick thoughts I had on the SMU Penn State game. I mean, SMU's got some fantastic talent on the offensive end there. That quarterback, I can't remember. Does he have another year eligibility or a couple of years or something like that? Because he might, if he's got another one, he might be the Heisman favorite. One of the Heisman favorites going into next year because he's looked fantastic for the most part all year. But it's really hard to go against that Penn State defense. Yes, Oregon for about 75%. Well, I would go 65% of the game made them look silly, but then Penn State did it right back to them. That's what happens when you got two teams like that. I just think overall Penn State is the better team. And yes, James Franklin also has the big game thing against him. But I don't think he's as shaky in big games as Ryan Day. And I think they will be well prepared to take on an SMU squad. And really, I mean, who's going to stop? For the life of me, now I'm forgetting that Penn State tight end's name.
Tyler Warren.
Yes, there we go.
Stud.
Fantastic. Should be a first-round draft pick when he comes out easily. Honestly, I think he's better than what Kyle Pitts was at Florida. But does SMU have an
R.I.P. Kyle Pitts?
Yeah.
Golly.
I mean, does SMU have an answer for him? I think this is a comfortable 14, 17-point Penn State win. Like, not a blowout, but, like, Penn State's never really threatened with a close game.
Okay. I don't mind the take by any means. Kevin Jennings is a junior, by the way. Also, dude looks straight up like Teddy Bridgewater. I don't. Nobody else thinks that. But look at this guy. You can't tell me this guy doesn't look like Teddy Bridgewater. If I pulled up a picture of Teddy Bridgewater, that is who I see when I see him on the field. I even sent a group text out the other day, and I was like, why does Kevin Jennings look like Teddy Bridgewater?
I mean, hey, Teddy Bridgewater's coming back, I guess.
He is.
Maybe he's just coming back to mentor him. But
he is coming back.
Moving on here, I know, not to steal your thunder again. I know that this was your favorite bet of the weekend, SMU plus 8.5 at the time. I mean, it's possible. I mean, Penn State looked real shaky at times throughout the year, but I think they're kind of humming on all cylinders right now. Moving on though, but my upset alert, I have no faith in this Texas team whatsoever. if Texas was smart, like, to be honest with you, bench Quinn Ewers. Quinn Ewers was looking like a first-round draft pick at the beginning of the year. Heisman, I believe he was one of the Heisman favorites, I think. But he's been beyond inconsistent throughout the year. I don't think he did not look good against Georgia. Now, Georgia's defense is one of the best in the nation. But he just has not looked consistent throughout the entire year. And I think Clemson's starting to really hit its stride right now. Cade Klubnik, sorry if I butchered that. Shout out to our boy David Westergreen.
Yeah.
Clemson alumni. Cade has looked really good in the past couple of games for Clemson. Again, it's hard to go against Dabo in these types of games, types of environments. This is my upset pick of the first round. I would take Clemson money line. I don't even need the spread. Just give me the money line.
Wow.
I think they're taking it to them.
Wow. I should have oh God, what'd I do? I should have went this route. I should have big screened you. Say it again. Say it for the people in the back who didn't hear you.
Clemson money line every day of the week this week and all day Saturday. Clemson will take care of business in the first round against Texas. And, again, I feel like Clemson is hitting its stride right now. Yeah, they struggled in the second half against SMU, but this all goes back to what has Quinn Ewers shown. I mean, that's where this all starts for Texas. Texas's defense will keep them in it. I just don't see anything on the offensive side of the ball with Quinn Ewers under center, and that's why his draft stock has completely tanked too. That's why I think he's going to end up in the portal somewhere. It's Manning time down there in Austin.
It is. I do think it is Manning time. I don't disagree with that. Yeah, Texas minus 12. So that's the largest spread of the week. And we don't even care about the points. We're taking money line.
That's my upset special for the week.
All right, I like it. Let's go that route. Texas gets upset by Clemson money line. What about Tennessee? Let's pull this back up. Tennessee, Ohio State. We kind of talked about the Ryan Day stuff. He loses in the big games, tough scenes in Ohio for Ryan Day and this squad. Each and every week, 4 straight years, losing to the Michigan Wolverines. But they get a little revenge here, a little opportunity to kind of right the season and get better. If they win, they get Oregon, which is not an easy task, obviously. They've already lost to Oregon once this year. But Tennessee, first Ohio State, we get the only SEC versus Big Ten matchup, the two juggernaut conferences of the year. How do you see this game going? Personally, I don't really think that Ohio State struggles here. But, again, they just lost to Michigan. So do you see it any different?
That defensive turnaround from that Oregon game for Ohio State is the huge difference maker here. I mean, they embarrassed that Michigan offense almost as bad as their own offense was embarrassing in that game. I just don't see Tennessee having the firepower. I mean, Tennessee's got a fantastic defense in their own right, but their offense has been real shaky at times. So I just don't know. I think their quarterback in Nico, I can't pronounce his last name. My apologies. I'm not even going to try. I think he's going to be a good one with another year or two of some game time seasoning. But I just don't see them taking care of business on the road in Columbus Saturday night. honestly, even with that not so good looking game against Michigan, Ohio State was going to be my favorite to win the whole playoff, to be honest, and they may still even be my favorite.
Wow. Well, I think that's a great transition because I wanted to talk about who's our favorite. If you're in the chat, this is the time to put your fingers to the test. Who is your favorite to win the college football playoff championship? Let us know in the chat right now. Who is your favorite to win the college football championship? Nate just said Ohio State, but are you actually sticking with that? Do you have somebody else in mind? I'll let you start with this one because I'm just a chalk donkey and chalk donkey. So obviously mine's boring, but I kind of like the spice that you brought with Ohio State. Is that who you're going with? Or you got somebody else?
So I probably, would have been kind of chalky too and gone Georgia but with Carson Beck out in the quarterfinals, I don't even think Georgia makes it to the semifinals. Even with having a de facto home game in the Sugar Bowl. Really, I'd been thinking about this after I had read it. Oregon is still Oregon. I honestly would go with I would still go with Ohio State. Now, hot take in terms of like a favorite to not necessarily maybe win it all, but I think the winner of Friday night's game will be in the championship game.
Wow. You think they go because Georgia without Carson Beck, you think they upset them, and then obviously you got Boise State, SMU, Penn State, not necessarily anything that you are worried about, obviously, is kind of what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean that, if it ends up being Penn State there, that's going to be a tough matchup for both, but I feel comfortable with both offenses on Friday night to get some work in and get the job done. So I'm still going with Ohio State as my favorite, but that's going to be my hot take to make the championship game will be the winner of Friday night's game.
All right. I like that. We are going to build a bracket here momentarily. For me, it's Oregon. I think they've been the best team all year. I think they're still going to be the best team. All this talk about they have the toughest road to get there. They got screwed over by being the 1 seed. And while I don't disagree with that, I do think that Texas, Arizona State is pretty solid. I think Arizona State's better than Boise State. Texas, I think, is better than Boise State. I think that Ohio State is probably one of the tougher quarterfinal matchups you might find if you're sitting in a position of having a bye. I think obviously Michigan found a way to beat them, but let's not take away from the rest of their season where they absolutely just destroyed everybody in their path, it seemed like, except for Ohio or except for Oregon and except for Michigan. So I do think Oregon probably has maybe a little tougher road than, say, a Georgia, if you're just comparing the 1 versus the 2 seed in terms of the matchups they potentially have.
Mm-hmm.
But Oregon's healthy. Oregon's great. Oregon, I think, is just going to dominate. I think Oregon kind of not a cakewalk, but I do think they go ahead and run the table here and win the national championship. You kind of mentioned a dark horse. I think Notre Dame or Indiana. It kind of sounds like you're saying that's kind of your dark horse to make the championship. My dark horse, I go right back to that SMU team. If they can get by Penn State, I'm not impressed by Boise State, and maybe I'm just wrong. Ashton Jeanty is phenomenal. I'm not going to take anything away from that guy, obviously, but I don't think as a whole that they're anything that we should be completely scared of. So why not SMU? And why not like an SMU Indiana freaking semifinals, bro? Like that'd be kind of sick. Like, you know, the 11 versus the 10 and the first ever 12-team playoff. That'd be cool as shit.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely higher on Boise State than you are. I mean, I'm not as high as like, oh, they're going to win the title, but you know, they've shown time and time again, you know, people selling out to stop Genty. Madsen's pulled some games out of his ass.
Yeah.
So it's just really a matter of what we're looking at there. I don't think the SMU pick is necessarily bad, but I might have agreed with you if they were playing anybody else in the first round, you know, like Texas or, you know, even Tennessee or something like that. But I just don't think this is a great matchup for them.
Maybe it's my Big Ten bias. Like the idea of like the Big Ten's always kind of been like this. I'm going to offend my co-host. It's always been like this boring, like knockdown, drag out, run the football, have good offensive guards. You know what? Like truly though, that's kind of been the Big Ten style, the old school, like style of football. Right.
Yep.
So maybe it's just like that bias might just be sitting there still for me. But damn, Oregon Penn State was a hell of a football game. And what did it end up like 45-42, something
45-37.
Something like I'm like that was a heck of a football game. So maybe I need to get out of that biasness. But that's where I'm sitting right now is that SMU.
What are you, a Missouri fan, Kansas fan, Kansas State fan?
Kansas State would be my my affiliation. But I mean, obviously, I born and raised in Kansas, so it's not like we get a lot of great football around here. Let's be honest.
I mean, you got Bill Snyder at least.
Well, they were great in the early 2000s, but a little underwhelming this year for K-State. That is for sure. I think that there was expectations that they could potentially be in the spot that Arizona State's in. But good for Arizona State. They earned it absolutely this year. So, all right, let's build a bracket here if we can, and maybe we end up getting out of here after this, but kind of the first time ever we have a college football bracket. Kind of the first time ever we can do like bracket challenges, if you will, if you want. And so let's build a bracket. Let's kind of do it old school, NCAA March Madness style. But we're going to call it Holiday Madness style, right? With the college football playoffs. Clemson, Texas. I kind of like your Clemson upset. You want to kind of just stick with that and go Clemson here? I
will go Clemson. I feel great about that one. And
watch
them get blown the fuck out on Saturday. But
Quinn Ewers throws for 300 yards and 4 touchdowns. It's just like, I saw a podcast on Thursday night. Nate said I was washed. All right, Tennessee, Ohio State. I am on the Ohio State side. What side are you on this one?
I'm the same there.
All right, Ohio State it is. I know our differences here with SMU, Penn State. Chat, I see there's some of you out here lingering. Penn State or SMU? What side are you on? Anybody, anyone put SMU or Penn State in the chat so we can break a tie. We don't even care which side it is. Just say it because we don't even need to talk about the next one. We know we're putting Indiana over Notre Dame, right? I'll tell you a quick story about this Georgia team before we move to the second round. My son has been playing the college football game. He had a Georgia dynasty. freshman mode, whatever. He's 9. He's kicking ass with Georgia. He gets done with his first year and he gets into his second year. And he literally tells me, like, in October, he's like, "Oh, Dad, I got this other guy, Carson Beck. Like, no, I'm done with him. This guy's better." I don't even remember the guy's name. Whoever their backup quarterback. Who's the guy's going to start for him?
Gunnar Stockton or something like that.
Stockton. That's right. Yeah. So he's like, "Oh yeah, I got this guy named Stockton. He's so much better than Carson Beck was." And so when Beck goes out in the championship game, I went and laid Georgia money line. I'm like, dude, my 9-year-old tells me Stockton's better than Carson Beck on college football. So I'm laying it. Obviously, that turns out well. Carson Beck gonna miss, and so Stockton will use his legs a little bit more often. Obviously, the Georgia defense will try to do their best to hold down the Indiana Hoosiers offense, but it was just funny because he was like, "No, Stockton's so much better than Carson Beck." So I had to put my money where his mouth was for us. So let's go back up to the top. Somebody in the chat, anyone. I need one person, just one of you, to say SMU or Penn State. It'll take you 2 seconds. It's free to chat. Somebody break our tie. Nate, Clemson or Scatterboo and Arizona State Sun Devils?
I'm going to take another hot one here, and we're going Clemson. That would be my pick.
Damn. Chargers took the lead. I'm not going to argue with that. I do think Arizona State's a little underrated. I think they have an opportunity to win this game, whether it's Clemson or Texas. I don't think they have an opportunity. I don't think they can beat Ohio State nor Oregon. But I do think they're going to go into this game underrated, and I'm probably going to end up picking them and betting them because I think they're going to be the underdogs in this game, which is just wild to be the 4 seed and underdog. But I don't mind taking Clemson in building our bracket. Ohio State, Oregon. You think Ohio State gets revenge?
Yes, I think Ohio State gets some
even after all the Ryan Day stuff.
Yeah, but I mean this is not, this is in the Rose Bowl. This is
not Michigan.
It is a traditional Rose Bowl matchup. I think, they get some horses going and they take care of business. Because I mean, you got to remember though, Oregon won that game, but Ohio State was driving, and if Will Howard, hadn't been such an, idiot like Dak Prescott, they could have gotten the kickoff and they could have possibly won the game. I like Ohio State in this one, but you know what? I will, for the sake of this bracket, I will delegate to you on this one.
Well, I'll take Oregon on that one, and then we'll give you Penn State on the other one since nobody wanted to chat it up in the chat. Penn State versus Boise State. Who you got?
I talked about Boise State being a dark horse here. I think for the sake of the bracket, just because I want to be different than what I would actually bet, I'm going to go Penn State probably. I think
who can Indiana beat in the semifinals?
Yeah, I'll stick with Penn State.
Penn State, we're going Penn State there. And then you already mentioned it once, so you think the winner of Indiana versus Notre Dame is going to beat the Stockton-led Georgia Bulldogs. So I'm just going to go ahead and put Indiana in there for the semifinals. Go Hoosiers. We're putting Indiana in the championship game?
Yeah.
I mean, we have to for the brand, right?
For the brand.
They playing Oregon or Clemson?
I think this is where Clemson would run out of gas.
Clemson runs out of gas. We take Oregon here. National championship, January 20th. Where's this game even going to be held at?
Atlanta? Maybe.
Looking it up. Yep, Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta, Georgia. The Oregon Ducks traveling all the way across the country to the Eastern time zone to face the Hoosiers of Indiana. The Cignettis continue to burn hot. Nate, can the Hoosiers pull it off, or we got to take Oregon?
I could go either way on this one, but, I wouldn't be a true alumnus and fan if I didn't take the Hoosiers. I got them full steam ahead. They got a little taste of some adversity in Columbus. I think they took that to heart. They embarrassed the shit out of Purdue on national TV. I think they're coming along strong.
Every once in a while, you just get a nice hit of that Sig, and you're like, oh, baby, I got to go back to that. I need more of that. I'm down for it, man. I'm down for it. I mean, I truly am. Like tomorrow night, with no skin in the game, outside of maybe I have to bet it because I'm a degenerate. But no skin in the game. You bet your ass I'm going to be pulling for Indiana, for you, my friend, for Hoosier Nation. Kev, whatever, man. Notre Dame's had theirs in the past, so Kev can just be a Hoosier fan for the rest of the college football playoffs. I'm going for you. This was your idea to have a show, so we got to take the Hoosiers in our bracket here. But what else? You got anything else to say before we shut this thing down? We've been on it for an hour talking college football playoffs. I do think Indiana wins or not, I do think we should do this again in 2 weeks. Let's come back. Let's talk about round 2. Let's kind of review the matchups and whatnot. It's fun. It's exciting. College football playoffs. Like, it's the first time we had a 12-team playoff. It's exciting. The matchups are great. I think there's going to be a lot closer matchups than all these 7-point touchdown favorites. But anything else for the people, Nate? Anything else you want to touch on before we shut it down?
Yeah, the only other thing that I want to touch on is I think that potential Penn State or SMU Boise State matchup is going to be really interesting. But the last thing I want to touch on is just to go on the FCS side. I'm not super familiar with all these teams, but we've got a couple hell of a matchups this weekend too in FCS to see who moves on to the championship round. You got South Dakota versus Montana State. Montana State, the only undefeated team in FCS, look real strong for the most part throughout the year. They host it. Great program of late. And then you've got, I want to say it's called the it's a huge rivalry game. And for the life of me, it's going to bother me if I can't figure out what this rivalry name is. It is called the Battle for the Dakota Marker. You got part 2, South Dakota State, North Dakota State. North Dakota State, the Alabama of FCS in the last 20 years. South Dakota State's won a couple titles in a row. Real great matchup. We'll see who can get revenge. They're playing in the Fargo Dome. Should be wild up there in North Dakota. Now,
up there, the Dakotas, baby.
Now, will I probably watch it? Most likely not, because I'll be busy during the day on Saturday. But just wanted to shout out FCS. 2 really good games. 1 really great rivalry game. Championship berth on the line. What's not to love?
A lot of great football on Saturday. If there was a chance or a way that you could just absolutely do nothing on Saturday between the FCS playoffs, obviously the college football playoffs, 2 NFL games, just an absolute dream of a Saturday. He's wide open. Oh, sorry. Absolute dream of a Saturday.
Who did he throw it to?
It was Mims, but he missed it.
Oh, fuck. Throw it to Sutton.
LA came storming back, took the lead. They got a 3-point lead. So I'm going to go watch the rest of this game. Nate, it has been a pleasure. Seriously, good luck to the Cignettis. I hope they burn hot, and they just take that Sig and they just stamp it on that Notre Dame helmet and just burn them down, baby. Go Hoosiers and go SMU for me. I don't know why I'm on the SMU train, but let's do it. I'm gonna bet them just for fun, anyways. What's another $10 out of my bank account and bankroll? Thank you all. If you've been here, thank you sincerely. Thank you for joining us. We truly appreciate it. I'll say it one more time. If you would like to support Bite Size Sports, we do have our Venmo up there. Obviously, we would be very gracious if you did support us. You can also support us by simply just hitting the subscribe button or liking this video or sharing us with a friend of yours. There's many, many ways that you can support Bite Size Sports as we are on our way to 700 subscribers. Nate, where can people find you and kind of sign us off here as we go?
You can find me on Blue Sky, but when I got a new phone, when it transferred over, it logged me out of my Blue Sky, and I don't remember. I don't remember the username, and all the emails I try are not working. So you can find me on
Blue
Instagram.
Sky. Already having issues. I haven't done Blue Sky yet, but I need to.
I mean, I liked it for various reasons, but now I can't even use it because I don't know how to figure out how to get back into my account.
I got to get on there as well. What about Twitter, X, Instagram? You do some NASCAR stuff in the spring and summer.
Yeah. I will usually share some stuff. I haven't done it of late on the Instagram, but usually you'll find some stuff there. Don't really have an X anymore, but it is what it is. So that's where you can find me.
All right. Find him on Instagram over there. Appreciate you all being here tonight. Find me on X at Trevor_SFF. Follow Bite Size Sports at Bite_Size Sports. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Appreciate you all joining us tonight. Hopefully your teams win this weekend and go Hoosiers.